Today's daf we're going to be learning is Gittin, Daf Petet. We're almost done with our Masechet. The next daf we will learn together today, this afternoon, this evening at the Siyum. So make sure to finish this before. This week's learning is sponsored in honor of Gail Licht, wishing a mazel tov to Gail upon her completion of the Daf Yomi cycle with the conclusion of Masechet Gittin, with love from all of her children and grandchildren. Be able to hear from Gail at the Siyum tonight. In addition to Erica Kolach, we'll both be finishing Shas tonight with us. Very exciting. Or this afternoon. And we are, again, if you can make it to Atlantic Beach, we would love to see you there, 1:30 this afternoon. And if you're joining from elsewhere around the world, your time will be calculated based on that 1:30 Eastern time. And another announcement about the bookmarks. The registration for bookmarks is going to close in a few days, so make sure to register for your bookmarks for Seder Nezikin. And you can still check if there are still sponsorship opportunities available. And if they're basically, the bookmarks are free of charge. We mail them out to everybody, but to help cover costs, we have sponsorships. And if people want to give a donation of $10 to help cover the costs, that would also be great as well. But really, they are free of charge. Anyone can order them wherever they want. Okay, I think that's it for announcements. We'll be starting Masechet Kiddushin starting on Tuesday. So I welcome, because really we're finishing the daf today, even though the Siyum is really supposed to be Monday. So tomorrow you can listen to the introductions to the Masechet or read up the introductions that are up on our site. And Ayala Lipson's introduction to the Masechet, the video that we usually have, the YouTube, should be up. It's also on audio. And look forward to seeing you at Masechet Kiddushin. A good opportunity to invite more women to join or more men. With that, we will get started with our daf. So today's topic is all about rumors. And we're going to start and finish this Mishnah. We started the Mishnah yesterday. We're going to talk really about rumors and how serious do we take rumors. So the Mishnah had said, if you start to hear a rumor about a woman in a city that she's betrothed, then she's betrothed. If you hear that she's divorced, then she's divorced. This really sounds like we take rumors seriously, but as soon as you get to the Gemara, you're going to see that they really minimize the rumors. And the first thing is the Mishnah already says, as long as there isn't some sort of excuse, right? Which means, oh, maybe the Kiddushin was in doubt. Maybe, right? Maybe there was some other thing going on there. Maybe it was the get was on condition. So the Gemara first said, we're going to forbid her to her husband based on a rumor. Didn't Rav Ashi say, and remember Rav Ashi, we're going to come back to him, that any kol that comes out after marriage, we were not concerned for. To which the Gemara had said, I'm just going back to the end of Pechet to review. Hachi kamar, yatzashma be'ir mekudeshet, harezo mekudeshet. If you hear she's mekudeshet, then we can assume she was mekudeshet. But mekudeshet u'megureshet. If you hear that, and if you hear both that she was betrothed and divorced. We didn't know that she was betrothed at all. But then we hear she was not only betrothed, but also divorced. We're now at the top of our daf. And it starts as saying, this woman is divorced. Why? Because it has the kol, the rumor, and the shovar. Shovar is like a receipt. But what it really means, the word shovar, the etymology of it comes from lishbol. It breaks the kol, the rumor, and the breaking of it. But usually the shavar breaks a shtar, like I owe you money, and then we have a shavar that says I paid you the money, so that breaks the shtar. So here you have the kol and the shavar all come together, and that's enough to basically permit it. So, and that means that woman's a unmarried woman because we have both that she was mekudeshet and megureshet. Amar Yatzara Shemaz Nebai. Rava says, what if we start to hear that the woman slept around? Can we say this woman can't marry a Kohen, for example? Ein chosheshim. We're not worried about this. My time up. It was just pritzut, right? Maybe she was doing actions that people might be suspicious. Oh, maybe this is going to lead to something, but we don't take that so seriously. To which the Gemara says, right. Well, so what's the pritzuta? They saw that. Now the Gemara tells us kitana. This is actually a Tanaitic debate, okay? Whether we take this kind of a call seriously or not is a debate among Tanaim. Okay, so now they're going to say, what's the debate among Tanaim? And here we're going to start to see different levels of how we treat this issue of rumors. Achla b'shuk o girgira. Okay, this is a woman who eats in the shuk, which is kind of a sign of arrogance, or girgara, she walks with her neck held high in the shuk, or you're going to be surprised by this one, heinika b'shuk, or she's nursing in the shuk. Okay, right, nowadays women nurse in all sorts of public places, but again, there's a way to do it in a more modest fashion. Bikulan Rabbi Meir Omer Titze. Rabbi Meir says he can divorce his wife based on any of these things. This is basically enough of a rumor, or right, it's like a rumor basically. It's because we can assume she must have engaged in something worse than this. Okay, it's not exactly, it's hard to imagine. There's a bit of an extreme opinion. Rabbi Akiva Omer, and here we're going to see different levels. So Rabbi Meir says divorce her based on this alone. Rabbi Akiva Omer, if you remember, we talked about these women. These are the women that do the spinning of their threads late at night by the light of the moon. And while they're doing it, they sit and they schmooze and they tell all the gossip of the community. Those women, we assume, actually know what's going on. Okay, and therefore, those, when they start talking about she was sleeping around with somebody, and you hear the women in the moonlight talking about it, then you can assume it's true. That's the kind of rumor, but not just that she was walking around in the shuk in a way that was a little bit inappropriate. Amar le Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. So the two of them both accept rumors. The question is, what is defined as a rumor? Amar le Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, im ken lo hinachta ba'ala Avraham Avinu sheyoshevet tachat ba'ala. Well, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri comes out with a big statement. He says, no one's going to stay married with their husbands if that's enough to basically incriminate a woman and say she must be sleeping around. Now, before we talked about that, we were talking about if she was shemazana be'ir, the thought was that she can't marry a Kohen, for example. But here it seems to be talking about anybody. And that maybe the concern was that if there's a woman who people are saying she's cheating on her husband, maybe on that basis he can divorce her. But Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says, no way, no how. If you just base it on rumors, someone who has an axe to pick with her, they'll just start spreading rumors about her, and then the woman will be stuck. Right? We know this to be a case all the time nowadays, right? Even with sexual harassment charges, there's always a question. How do we know who's telling the truth and who's not? Right? So how much do we take into consideration these rumors? So no one's going to stay married to their husbands. And here's going to prove how we know you need real evidence if you're going to say the husband has to divorce his wife based on this. When does he divorce her? And this we'll get to in tomorrow's daf when we finish tomorrow's daf, which we'll learn today at the siyum. When you find something that you divorce the woman, this is in the divorce psukim in the Torah, find someone that she was engaged in licentious behavior. Ula halanu omer, and there it says daval. And elsewhere it says based on 2 or 3 witnesses, something will be established. There is edut established by testimony. Likewise, by this woman, it has to be established by testimony. It's not enough to have a rumor. Husband can't divorce based on that. So now what we're going back to is Rava, who said basically, we don't worry just because people said she's sleeping around. We don't take it seriously. Is basically based on this machloket tanaim between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Akiva on one side, saying we can accept witnesses to allow us to say the woman has to get divorced, versus Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, who says no way, no how, we're not going to accept rumors. Anyone could just smear your reputation, ruin this woman's life by spreading a rumor. It doesn't necessarily mean it's true. Okay, moving on. But the same kind of idea of what kind of things are we going to accept rumors about and what are not. A bit of a different direction, but Tanu Rabbanan, Be'ula ein chosheshina. If there are rumors that this woman had premarital sex, and she wants to now marry a Kohen Gadol, who can only marry a virgin, we don't accept this rumor to say she can't marry him. Nisua en chosheshina. If people claim the woman's married when she goes to get married to someone, we don't believe this. Arusa en chosheshina. If they say she's betrothed, we don't believe this. Now, what's going on here? This seems to go against our Mishnah somewhat, right? Our Mishnah said mekudeshet, we believe it. So what they're talking about here is we're talking about a case where the woman was known in our city. Everybody knew she was not married. Everybody knew she was a single woman who hadn't necessarily slept with anyone. We're talking here where the rumor goes against what we call a chazaka. Okay? Could be the Mishnah was talking about a case where we didn't know anything about this woman. But once a woman has a presumed status, that status does not get removed by a rumor, according to this Braita. Okay, and that's the key here. Shalom leploni en chosheshina. What if they say, we heard she was betrothed, but they don't know to who? That's not enough of a substantial rumor. Be'ir acheret en chosheshin la. Part of what makes a rumor true is that people don't contradict the rumor. Well, if the rumor comes from a different town, they say she was betrothed in some other city, and now we're in this city, and the people from this city have no idea what went on in that city. So that's not a good rumor because there's no opportunity for someone to say, oh, that's not true. So therefore, we can't accept that rumor. Mamzeret en chosheshin la. People start saying she's a mamzeret, right? Born to a husband and wife, the woman was a married woman to somebody else. So we don't believe that because, not a husband and wife, born to someone, right, who wasn't husband and wife. She was married to someone else. I mean, they could be husband and wife, but could have been married to someone else and never divorced from them. It could be something like that. But again, if she had a presumed status of not being a mamzeret, you can't just switch her into a mamzeret based on a rumor. Shivcha, also to say she's a shivcha knanit when she was presumed not to be. En chosheshin. And now we're going off topic, but also about rumors. Hikdish ploni nechasav, hikir ploni nechasav en chosheshin lahem. If people say, oh, this guy's property isn't really his because he dedicated it all to the temple, or he made it all ownerless, we don't listen to a rumor like that. Again, assuming we all thought this was his property beforehand. Amar Ula. Ula is going to also continue. We're going to have a number of statements that start off with these words. Lo sheshamu kol avara. It's not enough that they just heard some sort of rumor. Ella, what do they need in order to have a substantial rumor? This is the way he's going to understand our Mishnah now, in light of what we've been talking about. You need to have something more substantial. When our Mishnah said Mekudeshet works, it would have to be the following. Come witnesses that say we saw candles lit, umitot mutzaot, and beds set up. Beds meaning that's what people ate on, beds. Ubnei, like reclining chairs. Bnei adam nechnesim v'yotzim. We saw a lot of people going in and out, meaning it was clear there was a wedding going on there. V'omrim plonit mitkadeshet hayom. And then people say, so-and-so is getting married today. In other words, these witnesses heard people saying, the wedding is about to be between this person and this person. Mitkadeshet. So now you have, before we actually get to the question, let's get to the question on this and then I'll explain a little better. Wait a minute. If you say, ploni mitkadeshet hayom, mitkadeshet, she's getting married, dumalo ikacha, we all know that it could happen. It doesn't usually, but it could happen at the wedding. They're about to get betrothed. Right here, it's not even the wedding, it's the engagement party. And they decide to call the whole thing off. So just because they said she's going to get married certainly can't be enough. Okay, it would have to be she got married. In other words, the witnesses came and said, we saw this whole party going on. And then people told us that this woman got betrothed. And that would be the case. So now, one thing you have is, number one, there's some evidence on the ground. There's things we see. The witnesses actually witnessed something. Not the wedding, but the fact that there was a wedding going on. They heard that it was this woman, and it was today. That can uproot the chazaka because it's saying today. I know you all thought she wasn't married until now, but today she got married, and that changes her status. So that actually could work. V'chein tani Levi. Levi brings the same source as a Braita, okay, as opposed to Ula, who just said it himself. Levi quotes a Braita. Lo shishmu kol havara. It's not enough that they just heard some rumor. We have candles lit, beds set up. Women are weaving by the light of the candles. Usmecholan are very happy. I guess this was something that went on during weddings. And they were saying, Plonit mitkadeshet hayom, to which again the Gemara says, mitkadeshet, how could it be she is getting married? Dilma lo ikacha, maybe she never got betrothed or married, whichever one. Amarav papa ema plonit nitkacha hayom. It would have to be that they said, she got married. Okay, so both times we have to change the wording because it doesn't make sense. Now it's quoted in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Lo sheshamu kol havara. Again, it starts the same way. It's not enough to just hear a rumor. Very similar. Okay, people are coming in and out. Amru davar zeh hu kol. Lo amru davar zehu amatva. Sorry, I didn't read it right. Amru davar zehu kol. If they said something like she got married today, then it would work. If they didn't say that, zehu amatva, then it would just be an excuse, meaning we'd have some way out of saying this isn't a rumor. To which the Gemara says this makes no sense, or this is totally obvious. Lo amru, if they didn't say anything, it's an amatva. V'halo amru v'lo klum. Well, it's not even an amatva. If they didn't say she got married today, or they didn't bring this evidence of all this stuff, it obviously wouldn't be anything. So what are you talking about? To which they say, what Rabbi Yochanan meant, he was trying to say, I disagree with what Rabbi Bar Rav Huna says. which is what? Rabbi Baruch Huna said, in a matla could be from now until even up to 10 days after the rumor was spread. Okay, so an amatla is something that comes down the road. It doesn't have to come right away when you hear. There could be a rumor, there could be an amatla to explain it, and that's fine if it happened 10 days later. Comes Rabbi Yochanan to say no. Sorry, I lost my place. Okay. If they didn't say anything, meaning if they didn't say it right away, that this was the case, right? Then they didn't have an excuse right away. If they didn't say anything clear, they didn't say ploni nitkat shayom, hu dahavi amatla. Then we'd have an amatla and say, oh, this clearly wasn't them. But ha'amru, and this is really what he wants to say, as soon as they said ploni nitkat shayom, lo havi amatla. There's no room for amatla later. Can't come and say, if the rumor was spread right away and there was no amatla said with it, no sort of excuse of any way, then you can't contradict it. Again, he starts off the same way. It's not that they heard any sort of, it's not just any sort of rumor. And this is really the strongest of what you need. You have to ask, where do you hear the rumor from? And he says, from him. Uploni, mi ploni. And then you go back and you trace the provenance of this rumor. You go all the way back until you have the real thing. To which the Gemara says, what are you talking about? That's rumor? Well, then you have testimony. You don't have a rumor anymore. If you know where it came from, then you know who said it, and then you have proof. Ella, so it can't be that. Ella ki ata Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda amar Rabbi Abba amar Rav Huna amar Rav lo sheshamu kol havara ella kadei sheyomru ploni mehechan shama ploni ploni ploni. It's again the same thing, but when you got back to the original person, they already weren't in town anymore. But if each person could name their source and you could trace it back, and you could even trace it back to who it was, they're just not around anymore, then we can assume that's a real rumor. But less than that, no rumor. Abai now asks Rav Yosef, mivatlin kala or lo mivatlin? What if we find out that the rumor was totally not true? Can we cancel the rumor? Can we get rid of it or not? So what does he say? He says, Rav Yosef says to me, the Amar of Chisda, since Rav Chisda said, meaning rumors can only be from kosher witnesses. Now we got another thing. Chisda says you have to be a kosher witness. Right? That means men only. That means no sort of background of theft, of anything like that. And shmamina mivatzlinan kala. So from there we see that it's all about finding the absolute truth, and therefore, as soon as we find out it's not true, we can say, obviously, we're not going to go by this anymore. It's not exactly the same thing, only ksherim and getting rid of a kol, as we're going to see, because what's the issue with getting rid of a kol? Well, we'll see in a minute, but the issue is these are not exactly directly linked, but they're going to try to link them. That's what Rav Yosef is saying, because you need a high level of truth, to try to get to the closest truth you can by having kosher witnesses. Therefore, it must be that if you find out it's not true, mevatlin kal. To which Abai says back to Rav Yosef, I would say the opposite. But you quote Rav Chisda, I could quote you Rav Sheshet. Rav Sheshet said even women can be the sources of rumors. We saw that from the Mozorot B'Levana. Shma mina. Lo mevatlin kala. From here we see it's not all about truth. Now, what does it mean it's not all about truth? Well, let's say there's a rumor spread about you, and then that you're married. And then you go marry somebody else because it turns out the rumor wasn't true. People are going to see that you got married to someone else, and they're going to know there was a rumor spread about you, and they're not going to know that the rumor wasn't true, because often they hear the rumor, they don't hear that it wasn't true. And they're going to think that, oh, look, you got married without getting divorced. Then they might start claiming your kids are mamzerim, or they might think that maybe you don't need a divorce at all because they'll use you as their example. So that's the problem with getting rid of a kol. So now Abai says, so I understand from Rav Sheshet, you would think, lo mevatlin kala. Amar lei. So Rav Yosef answers him, atravat aninu. It all depends on where you're from. Besura mevatle kala b'nahar dea lo mevatle kala. And this we saw before, that it depends where you live. And in some places, in Surah, they decided, yes, you can get rid of rumors, cancel them, and the Hardia said no. Now we're going to see a whole bunch of cases where rumors were spread, and now we're going to see what they did with them. There was a rumor that a woman was betrothed to a Talmid Chacham, a student. So Rav Chama goes to the father of this woman, Amar Emily, and he says to him, Emily hechi ava uvad. Tell me what the facts were. Amar al t'nai kaddish. He betrothed her upon condition. What was the condition? Adata delo azal Beit Chozai. Right? He said, you'll be betrothed to me on the condition I don't go to Beit Chozai. If you remember, Beit Chozai was a place that was very far away. V'azal, and he went to Beit Chozai. So what the father's basically saying is it's true there was a rumor because she was betrothed, but it was betrothal upon condition. This is what we call an amatla, and it was basically, it's not right. The condition was never met. But what does Rav Chama say? Amarle, this is what we saw before. When the kol came out, the amatla didn't go with the kol, and therefore lav kol kaminech demachazket amatla. We can't go with this amatla at this point because the rumor's been spread already. And again, it's going to cause all sorts of problems because people are going to think she's betrothed. If we allow her to get remarried to somebody else, we're going to have trouble. This is actually a difficult case because he's now far away until he comes back and gives her a divorce. Who knows when he'll be back? And it's a bit of a problem. Or maybe he was back and then maybe just Rav Chama thought, oh, he'll give her a divorce right now. But basically, if she wants to get married, she has to get a divorce from him. There was a woman, there was a rumor, and here's an expanded rumor, or detailed, I should say, that she was betrothed with the dregs of the dates, or dates that were unripe, Rashi explains, and something really not very appealing, that came from the stream, or was done by the stream of Beis Shifi in this place. So Rabbi Barabin sends to Abaye, Ki agav namai. What's the story? Amar le afilu lamand amar lo mevatzin kala. Remember, Abaye was the one in the discussion with Rav Yosef about mevatzin, lo mevatzin. He says, listen, even if you think you can't get rid of rumors, beha mevatzin kala. In this one, you can. You see, Abaye's agenda was to try to figure out, because he was arguing with Rav Yosef before, we should get rid of rumors. And here he's saying, basically, even if you say you can't get rid of rumors, in this case, you can. Why? Again, what was our concern if you can't cancel rumors? Because people might think that the rumor, right, they might still think that she's really married. And then the fact that she's marrying someone else is going to create all sorts of problems. However, in this case, Meimar Amre, since she was betrothed by something so meaningless, basically, if people see she gets remarried, they'll think, oh, well, since the rumor came with this whole detailed story, they'll know on what she was betrothed, and they'll say, oh, maybe the rabbis assessed that didn't even have the value of a pruta. This is a good promo again for Kiddushin. We're going to learn about Kiddushin has to be b'shava pruta was something worth a pruta. So in this case, it's not going to really be b'shava pruta. Okay, so moving on. Okay, we're going to have another woman now who there's a call that she was betrothed. This case, the betrothal was Lechami b'nei Planya, to one of the sons of somebody, which was enough of, remember before we said, if you don't even know who she's betrothed to, it doesn't count. But this was enough to say we can count this. So Amar Rava, but Rava said, Afilu l'man Amar lo mevatzlin kala, b'ha mevatzlin kala. In this case, we could even cancel the rumor. Why? Meimar Amre, Ainu bo Rabbanit b'kiddushe katan havu. All the sons of this person were young, and therefore they could say, oh, people will think that they were too young when they betrothed her, and the betrothal wasn't valid because a minor can't betroth a woman, and therefore they'll know that it wasn't really anything. Okay, so again, if there's reason to think that people won't think that this is something, that there was really Kiddushin and they can have some other excuse, then we allow the kol to be canceled. Another case. There was a woman who a rumor was spread about her. This is a takeoff on the last one. We now have a minor, but he looked old. Okay, we all know kids that look much older than their age, look very mature at a young age. So he says there was a case, just like this. What does this mean? It comes from a pasuk shene'amar. Lepagut Reuven Gdolei Chokele. Okay, for the fleets of Reuven, there are great people who are chokrei lev. The gedolim doesn't mean great, it means older people, right? Chikrei lev. These are people, in order to be gadol, you have to be someone who has understanding of the heart. This means basically understanding. There's a certain maturity level, which isn't physical maturity, but intellectual maturity. And what they're saying is you could have a katan that looks old, but as soon as people start talking to them, they realize that they're really young. And therefore, there's no concern that we're going to confuse young looking, right, older looking with older person. No chance of that. And therefore, and as long as they're underage, then we don't worry that people will think that the kiddushin was valid. We can say, people will just say, oh, it was kiddushin with a minor. This is something we quoted before. Now we're going to see it inside. Okay, so again, the amatla has to be within 10 days of the rumor being spread. Rav Zvid Amar, right? We saw before that Rabbi Yochanan disagreed and said it has to be immediate. And we saw a case where the father explained it later and that didn't count. Rav Zvid Amar, bimkom amatla chosheshin la'amat. He says, when there's room to think that there's an amatla, we can be concerned that maybe there was an excuse. There's some reason, even if we don't know that there was, let's say, there's reason to think that kiddushin was on condition. We're going to see a case like that in a minute. You'll see why. If there's a reason to think that kiddushin was in a case of condition, even though we don't know that it was, we can assume there was an amatla and again undo this rumor. To which Eitive Rav Papa Rav Zvidi questions. What do you mean? What does it say in the Mishnah? As long as there's no amatla, which means there has to be an amatla if you want to undo the rumor, but not where there's a potential for an amatla. To which he answers, it means if there's an amatla or there's potential for an amatla. Okay, so that's how he reinterprets the Mishnah. But Rav Kahana understood that Rav Papa was disagreeing with Rav Zvida, was questioning him, must disagree with him. To which Amarle Rav Kahana Rav Papa, Ba'adlo Tizbrad, you don't think that bimkom amatla chosheshin la'amatla? Ba'hatznan, there's a Mishnah in the end of Masechet Yevamot, you might remember, very famous Mishnah, of a woman who her husband goes away, doesn't come home. We have one witness to testify that he died. So we can, and then she goes and gets married. And then what happens? Right? So if she was nitkacha, if she was only betrothed to the second husband, then her husband shows up, muteret lachzor, she can go back to her first husband. She doesn't even need to get from the kiddushin to the second husband. It's only an engagement. If she was married, it would be a problem. She would need to get from him. But she doesn't need to get from the betrothal, even though normally you do need to get from betrothal. Now, why is this? Lav mishum de amrina altnai kaddish. Isn't this because we assume that people will see this and say, he must have betrothed her upon condition. The betrothal was under the condition that your husband's really dead. This would be a good case of where we could say, makam amatla. We can assume there was an amatla because she was only getting married because she thought her husband was dead. So maybe since she didn't have perfect proof, maybe there was a condition on the kiddushin that this is all assuming my husband doesn't show up. So then the Gemara says, what are you talking about? The reason she doesn't need a get is because the husband's standing right here. Now, if she's married to the first husband because he's still alive, and then she gets betrothed to someone else thinking he was dead or not thinking he was dead, either which way, the second kiddushin is not valid at all. Of course, you don't need a get from that because it's not even kiddushin. So once you're betrothed to someone, ain't kiddushin tovsim. There's no validity to that. That's why. To which the Gemara says, well, if that's the reason, and that the second kiddushin wasn't valid at all, well, then the second marriage wouldn't be valid at all either. And nisei, right? We said if she's married, then she would need a divorce from the second one, right? Then it would be a problem when she gets married. To which they say, oh no, nisei ta'avdi isur kansua rabbanan. Nitkachet lo avdi isur lo kansua rabbanan. You might remember this. We always thought this was a little bit unfair to the woman, but they basically say that it's the woman's fault. Why is it her fault that the husband shows up? The point was we only relied on one witness, which is a weaker form of testimony. And her job was really, the reason why we rely on one witness is because we assume she did her homework properly and she really checked into it and did her research and saw that he was really dead. If he really is alive, they're assuming she didn't research it well enough. And she just got married based on this. And if she already gets married and then Avdi Sur, which means she slept with her husband already, the new one, when she was really married to the first one, then we penalize her. And then remember what happens. She has to get divorced from both. She's forbidden to both, right? And that's because she went ahead and married him. But if she didn't marry him, then no. So we have this issue of, we tried to say that this was a proof that Matla, but in the end we say it's not because B'mkom Matla, it's because the husband was actually there, and therefore that meant that the Kiddushin was clearly invalid, but it wouldn't help for the Nisuin because if she already got married, we're going to penalize her, and that's why she's forbidden to all of them. Amar Rav Ashi, Kol Khaled, we go back to Rav Ashi, if you remember, he was the one who said, if she's already married, we don't accept sorts of rumors that come up about her status, that, oh, maybe she wasn't married, she was married to someone else before. So Rav Ashi could see is kind of minimizing these rumors. And Amar Rav Ashi, Kol Khaled lo itchasik bebeit din alav khaled. If you don't have proof in a court, if the court didn't verify this rumor, then it's not a rumor. That already gets rid of a lot of rumors. Rav Chaviva Amal, V'amar Rav Ashi, and furthermore, Rav Ashi says, Kol Kala de B'tar Nisuin lo chashin alei, as I just said, right? After marriage, we're not worried about this. But what can you infer from Rav Ashi? Had de B'tar erusin chashin alei. But if it was a rumor after she was only betrothed, and then you heard some rumors she had been betrothed previously to someone else, then we are concerned for rumors. However, Rav Chaviva Amal, Rav Chaviva says, Afilu de B'tar isurin nami lo chashin. We're not even worried after the erusin. The halacha is we're not worried even after erusin. Okay, this again minimizing rumors. Okay, we don't really take them very seriously, right? There's all sorts of criteria. It has to be itchazak bebeitin. It has to be not when she's already in a relationship of betrothal or marriage. Another question. Amar Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba. Shalchule mebei Rav l'Shmuel. So from the house of Rav, this means probably the students of Rav after Rav died sent this question to Shmuel. Yilamdenu Rabin. Tell us, please. We're now going to have two cases. One is where there was a rumor about being betrothed to a first husband. After the rumor was spread, she goes and gets married. Well, marriage, we all know about it, was Kiddushay Torah, real valid marriage. Is that valid? No, it says Kiddushay Torah, means they did it as if it was Kiddushay Torah. The question is that valid? Do we take the rumor seriously? She was betrothed to someone else, in which case this marriage wouldn't be anything. Shalach lehu teitzei. They say she has to get divorced. We're not yet sure from who. And go figure out better what the details were and let me know. So, what's he worried about? Maybe if they find out that the first kiddushin wasn't valid at all, then we ignore it, and she can stay married to the second husband. Well, that would mean mevatlin kol. What's the problem with saying we can get rid of a kol? Well, ha-nahardea atre de Shmuel hu v'lo mevatle kala. We know that in Nahardea, the place of Shmuel, they were mevatel kol. Remember, that was what we learned. They don't get, once there's a kol, we don't get rid of it. Ella, what he meant to say was, right, in this case, wasn't where the kol was after she was already married. There was a kol and then she got married. Ella di magalia milta de kiddushe kama kiddushe ma'al yaninu. If they figured out that the first marriage was valid, lo tzricha get misheni. Then she's not going to need a get from the second husband. Why? Because the second husband's get was marriage, betrothal was nothing because she was already married to somebody else. Upliga de Rav Huna, and Shmuel disagrees with Rav Huna. Amar Rav Huna, eshet isha pashta yada v'kibla kiddushim me'achel mekudesh. Rav Huna says if a married woman goes, or there's reason to think she's married, and she gets, we thought she was married, she goes and gets kiddushin from somebody else. She's mekudeshet. Why? Midarav Hamnuna, de Amarav Hamnuna, Haisha Shamra LaBala Gerashtani Ne'emenet. Chazaka Ein Isha Miza Paneh Bifnei Bala. We saw this already. A woman who says to her husband, "You divorced me," is believed. Why? Because we assume she's not going to be so brazen as to say he divorced me when he didn't. So therefore, now this isn't really the same thing. We'll talk about that in a second. But therefore, the assumption is she wouldn't go get married unless she had actually gotten divorced. So we can assume that she got divorced. We can believe her. So now, basically, Shmuel is saying we have to worry that maybe she was still married to the first one. And Rav Huna would say, no way, no how. If she went and took Kiddushin, for sure she's not married to the first one. The Idach, so now why does Shmuel think there's concern? Why doesn't he accept this chazaka? For obvious reasons. Ki itmar de Rav Hamnuna b'fanav. Shalo b'fanav miza u'miza. The whole thing was with the Enisha miza paneh b'fnei ba'ala, in front of her husband. She would never say to her husband, "You divorced me," when he didn't, because it's obvious either he did or he didn't. So it's a real huge lie to say you divorced me when he didn't. She would never be so brazen as to say that in front of her husband. But if her husband's not here, like here she's just going to get married to somebody else, maybe she would be mizah to say she was divorced when she really isn't. So now they want to understand the rest of Shmuel. So what if they didn't figure out? If they did figure out, basically Shmuel says, Teitzei. But you should go figure it out. And if you figure out that she wasn't really betrothed that she was really betrothed to the first one, then she doesn't need to get from the second because she's clearly not married to. Which Rav Huna says the exact opposite. She's married to the second one for sure. So what if they don't find out? Then what would Shmuel say? Amar Rav Huna megaresh rishon. Rav Huna also would have a debate, right? Megaresh rishon v'nosei sheni. So Rav Huna says, this actually disagrees with what Rav Huna says. I guess Rav Huna is explaining Shmuel. But Migaresh Rishon, she'd have to get divorced from the first. V'nosei sheni. No, actually, this is Rav Huna. Sorry. The first one, Rav Huna would go one step farther, though. They say the first one, we need to divorce her, just in case it was actually Kiddushin. But she can stay married to the second one. Aval Migaresh sheni v'nosei rishon, though. But you can't have the second one divorce her and marry the first one. Why? My timer. If she gets divorced from the second one and goes back to the first one, that there was rumors she was betrothed to him, people are going to think that, oh, maybe since she was only be'erusim with the second one, she was allowed to return to the first one. Since she got a get from the second one, people will say, oh, look, she's divorced from the second one. And this is the case of Machzir Grushato. The first one's returning his divorced wife who was married to someone else in the interim, which is forbidden. So we can't allow it in that direction. However, Rav Shinin Abared Rav Idi Amar Af Megarei Sheni v'Nosei Rishon. You could even divorce the second one and marry the first. Both directions are okay. We're not worried about people saying that. Why? Memar Amrei Aynei Rabbanim B'Kiddushay Ta'ut Hava. So now they're going to say, the rabbis, we can assume she can go back and marry the first because the rabbis looked into it and saw that the Kiddushin was by mistake and that the second one was never really valid. And therefore, they won't think it's a returning of a divorced woman once she was with someone else. They'll just assume, again, this goes back to all these assumptions. People will say, they'll assume that the rabbis said the second one was no good because there was this rumor she was already betrothed to the first. That was the first case here of there's a call before she got married and then she got married, but the marriage we knew about definitively. What if Yatzala kol mizeh u'mizeh? What if there's a rumor that she's betrothed to two people, that she got betrothed to this one first and then she got betrothed to that one second? Now what do we do? So Amar Rav Papa, Rav Papa says, just like Rav Huna said in the previous case, you can only have her divorce the first one and marry the second one because otherwise we're worried people will say she can go back to her divorced husband after being with someone else. But Amar Muteret Lishnehem, Amar says she's actually permitted to both. And then the Gemara is going to end with a Hilchata, which will leave us up to the last Mishnah. The Hilchata Muteret Lishnehem, and the halacha is like Amar, she's actually permitted to go in both directions in this case, and it's not a problem. Okay, so what we saw today, I'll just do a very general review of the daf, all different approaches, right? Where the Mishnah seemed to say this rumor we will accept. The Gemara had a lot of criteria for and a lot of differences of opinion about what type of rumors we can accept and what type of rumors we can't accept. What do we consider people will think? What do we not consider people will think? When do we think, right, once you have a rumor, and even if it's not true, it becomes clear it's not true, can we cancel it or not? Are we worried what people will think? Okay, and there's all sorts of very interesting things here about what assumptions we can make about rumors, about people, about what they might think, about what they might say, and how this affects women's marital status. Very fascinating questions and interesting opinions. Okay, with that, we'll finish for today. I will see you all at the Shiur.